two sides of the martial arts community. There's the people who are the casuals, who watch UFCs every week and you train that UFC stuff, right? And the other side, right? The hardcores, the people who trained before they really ever started watching. Well, I feel like in the public eye, sometimes you being a judge and being a judge of one of the most notable fights in the UFC in John Jones versus Dominick Reyes, sometimes you could get a bad rap. And everyone knows it's a hard job, but they're still gonna give shit to whoever's name was called, right? Mm-hmm. Whoever was scoring that fight, right? Has that ever bothered you?
I started getting into a lot of the karate stuff, and I enjoyed it. But the problem I had with it was that I still had fights, but I never did anything that I was trained to do. Mm. And we would have trouble when we went to go spar with regular karate schools, because sometimes they wanted a point fight. They would go throw one back fist, a side kick, and they'd want to stop. We were just getting started. You made contact with us, we're finishing. They would stop. So they saw it. We got kicked out of a lot of these gyms, and we're not allowed to come back. You know, like they didn't want us in there because we didn't show up to learn katas or anything. We were there to spar, and they didn't want that. And so that's not where they were at. And as the years went on, like I said, you know, we heard about some people outside of our community, which was the Inosanto group, where he was going around the country. Bruce Lee had already passed, and we knew a lot about Bruce Lee, and we were trying to emulate. And you know what a lot of people didn't realize is that a lot of what they saw on TV or on the movie was not really what he did. And then we started hooking up with people that actually trained with him, and that's what we were looking for. We felt that was pointing more toward the truth of what we were looking for, right?
What would you say is y'all's biggest accomplishment in the public eye, and then to second that in your own lives, like personally?
In public view, it's probably just the fact that we can run our own business and run it together as like a father and son, because I know it's not a common thing.
Long time ago, when Jason was like 16 years old, 15 years old, he was getting really good at competition and so forth. I had one of the black belts came over to me. He's from Brazil. He told me, he says, "Man, it's wonderful to see y'all to work together, but unfortunately, y'all gonna have a division. You're gonna have to send him somewhere else to go train because y'all not gonna be able to get along." This day, how old are you?
36.
He is my best friend now.
What is up, villains, and welcome to episode 100 of the Will versus the Way Uncensored MMA Podcast. With me, your host Noah, and of course, T. Will the Casual. And today, we wanted to make this 100th episode very special to you guys by bringing to you some of the guys who've changed the course of my life and his life, the life of many others, especially in this community of mixed martial arts in Texas. Today, we're going to be talking to two of the most brilliant minds in Texas MMA history and owners of the Texas Third Coast MMA Academy, Professor Jason and Joe Solis. Both Jason and Joe have had a long, and I mean long, history of studying, applying, learning, and teaching martial arts of vast variety. This includes traditional karate, judo, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, all the way up to Savate and Jeet Kune. And if you guys don't know what that is, Bruce Lee, everyone's favorite martial artist, that was the martial art that he created. In this video, not only do we hope to uncover some hilarious and also eye-opening stories from Texas MMA history, but like as in every interview that we do, we hope to delve into the father, the fighter, the martial artist, the coach, and maybe more importantly, the human behind these faces that we see every day. Some of their known but not much talked about accomplishments include, on the side of Professor Joe, karate black belt, judo black belt, golden gloves champion, JKD Kali full instructor, one of only 10 instructors to be given that title, under the legendary Danny Inosanto, Larry Hartzell, and Paul Vunak. 4th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, amateur and professional MMA and boxing coach, a licensed and certified MMA referee and judge. He also helped to develop the first boxing team for El Campo Boys and Girls Club, awarded as the official instructor for Houston's Guardian Angels. And on the side of Jason Solis, a 3rd degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, winner of the ADCC West Coast Trials and the IBJJF Pan American Championships. For those of you local in Houston, he is also the Elevate Submission Grappling Champion and the former Submission Hunter Pro champion. Other accomplishments he has is championships in the Fight to Win organization, the Dungle Submission Grappling champion, and many more championships to go along with that, while also being given the title full instructor for JKD as well, and often seen as a prodigy for how young he's been able to have these many accomplishments. Along with being in the Houston MMA and Boxing Hall of Fame and being awarded Coaches of the Year, I would like to share a quote with you guys to describe just who Professor Joe and Jason Solis are and to show what makes them such great coaches. One of their favorite quotes goes, "If anyone can refute me, show me I am making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It is the truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone. What harms us is to persist in self-deceit and ignorance," by Marcus Aurelius. So guys, as we hope to seek the truth in this interview and podcast episode that we made specially for you guys, I just want to go ahead and thank all of you for joining us today.
We want to thank you, villains, and thank our Texas Third Coast family for the support and love that you guys have been giving us. And we wish you guys a very Merry Christmas. And we want you guys to leave some comments down below, give us some likes, give us some subscribers. We're going to grow this family together. And I just want to personally reiterate that we can't thank you guys enough for this, the love and support that you guys give us.
So hopefully you guys enjoy this treat from us to you and can take something from this, whether it be over the holidays or in your martial arts career. But without further ado, let us introduce Professor Joe and Jason Solis. Actually, you were talking about actually the reason that you decided to leave from your previous gym or elite was that now you were meeting all these people, right? And it was starting to get hard to recognize them by name, right? And you didn't have like that personal connection.
Yeah.
It goes back to that principle. It's like it's not fun unless we can all get somewhere, unless we all get that personal attention, right? Because that's the difference between like a small team and a bigger team, right? Or
No, it is. It can be. It's just, their goal and our goal was two different things. Their goal was to grow, which there's nothing wrong with it. Grow, make money, get bigger, right? Our goal was not that. My goal at the time was teaching, have fun, make some money, do what I like doing, and that's where I was at. I wasn't looking like to grow the gym that big. And when you guys end up having 400 or 500 people, and then people flowing through there, and you're just
and that also changes, I think, also the dynamics of the whole situation when you think of everybody just as a number instead of an actual individual. Because what you got over there was you got everybody coming in across the board, and yeah, everyone always says martial arts studios are like supposed to be the mixing pot, but that means that some bad apples get in too. And in some of those situations where it's a bigger facility, more people, they bring in more bad actors, and those guys kind of start to, poison the well a little bit, and then that culture kind of filters out, and then you see these guys splitting off because for whatever reasons, right? Versus kind of what we're doing is like we don't actually actively take everybody. Like we kind of pick and choose the people that come in, but also the people that come in aren't looking necessarily always for, I guess, like what you're seeing out of like a fight gym. Like most of the time the guys actually, I mean, believe it or not, you've heard this, you've seen it several times when we've been up there talking to people. Guys, you've talked to yourself, right? They come in looking to just train or looking to get like fitness and just looking to work out, and then it ends up becoming something where they actually want to compete, and then it delves into something a little bit deeper where it's like, oh, hey, I want to assist and help out and like all this other stuff, right? The quality of people, when you're not focused on the number of it, I think changes, and it also changes the culture of the facility too, as opposed to just throwing everybody in there and just saying, oh, you're a number, and constantly getting that rotational door because you don't know who's going to come through there. And the benefit to a smaller group, even though we are growing to smaller groups in the way we do our own things instead of like a number of different facilities out there running under one flag, is that we get to kind of pick and choose that quality, and it's safer. Everybody gets vetted, It's pretty. I think it's a good model, but it's very hands on though. It's very time consuming.
in football, we used to call it the weeding out process. There was stories. I know my brother for sure has stories. He went to Hightower High School, right? They had a beautiful football program, especially back in 2013 or 12, wherever he went to high school. But there was a weed in the team, right? One like a bad apple or someone who was encouraging wrongdoing throughout the whole team, right? And nobody like when it came to the coaches trying to like deliver a punishment, everyone knew who it was, but nobody would rat him out, right? And everybody, even the coaches, really knew. But in that environment in football, it's more, I guess, team oriented. And so it's like, okay, well, we're all gonna do punishment until either one of y'all rat him out or he comes out himself.
We're gonna find him.
Yeah.
No, don't get it twisted. We will find him. No, we'll find him.
Easy way or hard way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, depending on what you're after, like here, like for us, like I will say that we don't have a goal. Like we didn't chase.
Yeah, our goal's
we didn't chase a number. We didn't chase like we want a fight team and we want the best fight. A lot of gyms have that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But what I'm saying is that ours comes, our gratification comes as a process, and we get there. We're not chasing, and it's so much less, I guess, pressure might be one, but also the enjoyment of getting there and being there, and not really. When you get there, you didn't even really try to get there. It's like, does that make sense? Like
you're saying like y'all's goal is the journey, not
the
destination.
Right. And so then once you get there, where a lot of times if you're not getting there, you're getting disappointed. You don't want to do this no more. The school even suffers. The students see you're not happy because you're not paying the rent, or you don't have the numbers you want, or you're looking for the next best thing and it's not here, or you start seeing little cliques in your gym because certain people like certain things. So you're trying to build this or that inside their gym, and it just causes a lot of different chaos. Where I think between he and I, it's been a good formulation, to feed off each other like this.
It's also a very rare one though too. It's very rare.
So,
how hard was it to?
All right. First, let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead.
It's getting grimy.
We already started a pretty good conversation. But guys, welcome back to The Will versus the Way. This is episode 100 of the #1 Uncensored MMA Podcast. And I was thinking about maybe doing something big like pop confetti or maybe some champagne or something like that. But honestly, I was thinking that there's nothing really more special to me than to be able to give you guys a little bit of insight onto people who've made a lot of changes in my life and a lot of positive influences in not only my life, but T's life and many others as well. And two real pioneers, I would say, of Texas MMA that I feel just lucky to have in my life. And it feels weird calling them pioneers because, Jason's very young and Professor Joe's still on the mats and terrorizing people. But pioneers nonetheless, who've accomplished a lot in the sport. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce our guest, Professor Joe Solis, Professor Jason Solis, father and son, and both owners of Texas Third Coast MMA. As well as that, from Pan American champions to Golden Gloves boxing champions to 2 of only 10 JKD full instructors, or people to be labeled full instructors. In order to understand how we kind of gotten here, we have to understand, I feel like, the beginning or the roots. And so while trying to understand that, who is Professor Jason and Joe Solis? Where do y'all come from?
I'll start, I guess. I just started as a regular, I just growing up, just being, with 6 brothers, and growing up and fighting with your brothers all the time, My 2 older brothers, not so much so, but the younger ones that, we went around with, but, and we boxed in the backyard with each other, and time went through, I got into sports in high school, junior high, and it wasn't enough after school, and I was always getting into fights anyways already in high school and junior high, and then just deciding that, going into some karate-based stuff, that I had some friends in the neighborhood that were doing, some karate stuff, and so I kind of got started in there, and I was doing a lot of the taekwondo stuff, and and then eventually I started getting into a lot of the karate stuff, and I enjoyed it, but the problem I had with it was that I still had fights, but I never did anything that I was trained to do. I did, I learned how to throw side kicks, round kicks, jumping, spinning kicks, all kinds of stuff, right? And they were cool. But when I got in a real fight, that's not what I did. I boxed. I boxed. I kicked people between the legs, right? It's like, those are the things they told us not to do, right? And so and then I met a friend of mine as the years went on, and his name was Roland Gomez, and he's a real badass. And he and I together used to have these long conversations about reality fighting and not fighting. And we took the traditional, started working, traditional karate. It looked more PK, like pro kickboxing, right? It looked that way. And then we added our own stuff. Like we were already clinching to the neck, clinching to the arms, throwing knees. We would research. We sat, like I said, we sat a lot. We researched a lot of stuff. We saw guys around the country like Benny the Jet. He's one of the people we looked up to a lot when, would watch him fight with the ties and so forth. So and then we started making up our own regiments, like how we would train, how we would spar. I mean, we would spar very, very hard, right? It wasn't typically like us, and we would have trouble when we went to go spar with regular karate schools because sometimes they wanted a point fight. They would go throw one back fist, a side kick, and they'd want to stop. We were just getting started. You made contact with us, we're finishing. They would stop, so we didn't like. So we became more aggressive when we went. They saw it. We got kicked out of a lot of these gyms, and we're not allowed to come back. They didn't want us in there because we didn't show up to learn katas or anything. We were there to spar, and they didn't want that. And so that's not where they were at. So we got removed out of that a lot of times. So we ended up sparring a lot of times on our own. Doing mainly me and him a lot of times. And as the years went on, like I said, we heard about some people outside of our community, which was the Inosanto group, was risen in the early 80s, 70s, and about 82, 80, something like that, 1980. And there was Dan Inosanto, and he was going around the country. Bruce Lee had already passed, and we knew a lot about Bruce Lee, and we were trying to emulate. And what a lot of people didn't realize is that a lot of what they saw on TV or on the movie was not really what he did. And then we started hooking up with people that actually trained with him.
Well, how was it different?
Well, his was more theatrical,
right.
And this is what you see. I guess some of the JKD people today, they look very theatrical. They throw stuff like a movie. It's not really sparring. Where Bruce, if you watch some of the back footage that we picked up later on, was he was kicking heavy bags, air shields, had big boxing gloves. They were getting after it now. And that's what we were looking for. We felt that was pointing more toward the truth of what we were looking for, right? Mm-hmm. And so as the years went on, we hooked up with that group, and then we ended up learning like Muay Thai, which was really early in the early days. Nobody was even doing this stuff yet. The Muay Thai, we were doing the Bando boxing, some Savat. We started seeing the Kali. The Kali was bought out by the Kali, but another guy that changed everything for us as we went forward was Paul Vunak, because Paul pushed this stuff more realistic, like the real stuff we were looking for, street fighting. How did a side kick work? How did the jab work? What made these things really be functional?
And Paul Vunak was on the JKD side?
Yes, he was one of Dan's number one students. Dan Inosanto's real number one students. And he came out and he started talking about how to take a lot of the traditional arts, some of the stuff that they were doing, into real fights. So he would take, for instance, a simple drill like Tai Chi. He would show you how to entwine with the hands and break out and make it look realistic, right? And then kind of discard it. And then you would see splits, little motions of it. You wouldn't see the whole technique, but you'd see stuff like that. And then, he would go on and he broke everything down. It made total sense. I've never seen anybody like this guy, and he took a lot of that stuff. And we grabbed a lot of what we do today in every martial art that we teach here at Texas Third Coast, including him, is that because he got to experience him all the way through also. And we both got to train with him a lot.
When he was going through that era, it was whenever I started kind of coming up a little bit. And my first exposure to martial arts wasn't even karate, and it wasn't boxing. I mean, I had seen boxing, but it wasn't like experience like really boxing. But was specifically JKD, but it wasn't like I make a joke sometimes. I was being taught stuff that I probably shouldn't have learned at that age, but like some of the stuff was pretty rough. And I remember seeing some of it and just being like, oh, they're just learning how to fight. Like, that's all it is. Like, this is how you fight. Like, this is really how you fight. And that's all my thought was. I didn't think it was going to go to a sport realm. I didn't think it was going to be anything other than the fact that it was learning how to fight. But it was interesting because there were so many parts to it. And that's kind of where I started like sparking interest into it, liking it as like kind of like a puzzle, putting things together a little bit. And then I guess as the years went on, you know, Paul started venturing out a little bit too. And,
I mean, Paul gave us all an opportunity to be something introduce a lot of Bruce Lee's art out. And he did it in a total different way. Everybody had their own way, but I will say that, you know, without him, you know, he has a huge influence on everything that we do, like I said, and what you guys get. I mean, it's in my jiu-jitsu. You see it in the footwork, you see it in the gi, you see it in the no gi. I'm not sitting there going, this came from this or this came from that. But if you look at it, it's there, and you guys have seen it before.
Right. And yeah, that's actually something I wanted to touch on, because everyone, whether they're commenting on like one of our guys' fights or things like that, or they're just talking about the gym as a whole, or Jason's career or your career, they always talk about our jiu-jitsu and how it's like highly touted and stuff like that. But even though you've done judo and jiu-jitsu and all those martial arts, your first experience with grappling was through JKD, right?
Yes, it was.
Vunak's JKD.
Right? Yeah, actually it was another guy even before Paul was Larry Hartzell. And then even during that time was Eric Paulson, because I also got the chance to train with Eric Paulson.
Oh, so you trained with Eric Paulson before Larry Hartzell? Or?
During that same time. Eric was already fighting. Eric was fighting, we'd see him in some of the seminar circuits and stuff like that. And then even in the later years, Eric came back and was still teaching. But Eric had a huge influence on a lot of the stuff, because we were doing like the heel hooks, foot locks. There was a lot of grappling already.
I remember one of my first seminars I went to when I was younger was they were doing foot locks. And I remember watching, because I thought it was the strangest thing in the world. Because I saw two guys, laying down with a leg and a leg, and I was just a little kid. I didn't understand it.
See, what people don't understand is that this grappling stuff, and I think a lot of people do understand, but there's been grappling for many years. The difference was that they showed the technique here, whether it was standing, grappling, and then it stopped. Yeah. And that was the catch wrestling we were doing back then. Suicide Chai not Suicide, can't think of his name right now. Suicide Chai was a Muay Thai guy, but I can't think of his name right now. But a lot of that was catch scan, right? That's a lot of the shoot fighting stuff that we were doing, right? And then came along this jiu-jitsu stuff. And Paul was one of the people that helped introduce the jiu-jitsu to us, all right? And I remember one other guy a guy by the name of Steve Martinez came here to Houston once, was doing a JKD seminar. And he started showing us during a break a thing called UPA. And UPA was the bridge and roll, right? So from the mount, right? And we was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And, and then he started entwining, like staying there. He would bridge out, get to the mount, armbar guy, and the guy would turn it. He would, and they were wrestling very light. We were on carpet at a hotel, right? Yeah. And so like they were doing, and all of a sudden we started seeing this. And so I started asking him, he said, there's some guys by the name of the Gracies that are over there in California. He says, and they are, they're doing all this jiu-jitsu stuff, right? So I think this is right before the riots, because I flew down there during the riots and
LA riots.
Yeah, and I was training with Paul, and I went to go stay there. This is around 1990, 92, 91, 92, somewhere in there.
Right before the UFC even.
Oh yeah. They hadn't even started yet. And I was down there, and I had an opportunity when I was there with Paul to go with him to one of his privates with the Gracies, right? And so this is the first time I can see him.
I remember
in the corner was Hoist and Hoyler.
Yeah, and that's wild. Just to show how deep and rich y'all's history is with martial arts, because like you look at Eric Paulson today, and like the guys he's influenced and trained, like the Rutolo brothers, constantly having influence just throughout social media and the internet as well, just with all the stuff he's showing. And when you look at that stuff, does it kind of bring you back to those days?
Oh yeah, I remember a lot of that stuff. I remember because Eric was very like he would take you through a series like around your neck, and he could show you 20 different ways to work around the neck, right? Without it probably even using your hands, right? Your head, your neck, your chin, your ear, how you laid your shoulder. He went through all these different things, and they all made sense. I think the biggest thing, like I said, going back to Paul was, was that the attribute development is bringing out the attributes through the collie. And that's what me and Roland liked a lot, was that we liked that it was like turning a regular guy into an athlete, a martial artist, or somebody that doesn't look like they're much into something, right?
Nowadays they call it like supplementation or something like that. Like supplementing your, football footwork with like ballet or something, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
That's how people kind of look at it now.
Exactly. And we called it, at that time we would do boxing, kickboxing, and we'd wrestle, right? And we just called it cross training. We didn't call it mixed martial arts. We called it cross training. Wow. But the one thing that we stuck in there that everybody else didn't do was we'd stick weapons in there. We'd stick a knife, we'd knife spar, disarm the guy, continue fighting, kickboxing, kind of like what we did before. And we'd play with him 2-on-1, 1-on-1, get into fights and stuff like that, create different scenarios. Paul was pretty crazy. Like he would.
Paul would take it into a very visceral like arena.
Yeah.
When you're experiencing what he was like explaining, and yeah, I remember that it got pretty intense a couple of times. But
Paul showed biting techniques.
Everybody trips out on that stuff. But what people trip out is that what they don't realize is that he's teaching but it's no different than a bullet, a gun. You don't shoot somebody because they cut you off in traffic, right?
No.
Right? And you don't go around biting people because they throw a punch at you. You're biting people because you can't get out and you got to save your loved one, right? And you can't get out. That's like pulling out your gun or your knife. That's what he's on. Yes. But Paul was like, he wanted to explore every avenue of everything, and down to being at a bar. I remember him buying, 10 different bottled beers, and figure out which one broke the easiest and how they broke. No joke.
That's
no
crazy.
Joke. Right. And so he knew that certain things like that. And we would talk about, walking into clubs where this is our rendezvous here, and there's the extra door, there's a bouncer there, there's so-and-so there. And we would learn to scan rooms out, right? And as the years went on, I mean, everybody looks at, what's the guy's name, the Jason Bourne stuff,
Oh, John Wick.
We were doing
John
all that.
Wick.
That's y'all's John Wick. But we would scan rooms like that all the time. And he would tell you, you'd go into somewheres and we'd be in a restaurant.
Yeah, he would teach.
We could see people
that still get uncomfortable
that were packing. We could tell people that how they were packing, where they were packing their gun, if they had a knife, what their other subject was other than being there, for what reason. You could look at their worried face, and we would sit there and study people like that. You don't see that or talk about that. I'm sure agencies of some like high level do that, but in the martial arts level, you didn't hear that, and that was Paul. Paul went into a lot of stuff. But it's like you'd have to. Yeah, he was very deep like that.
Deep.
But again, like I said, as the years went on, we went on, and along each couple of years, some started to pop up, and then the next step popped up was the jiu-jitsu. Like I said, he was on. I forget where we were at, but he was showing the guard work on the floor. Right, it was a wooden floor. And he tells everybody, it was funny because he says, "Come here, trim my legs." I said, "Look, guys, this is called a guard. It's not that I haven't been in California too long, because he was making a joke about it, right? That because he put a guy in between his legs, right? And so he would say, "I haven't been in California. This is called the hip. Yeah, this is called the guard. This is called the hip bump. You're gonna bump this guy over." Yeah. And so he would talk about stuff like that. So, but yeah, as the years went on, that evolved, and so we got to the jiu-jitsu era, and then I'll be honest with you, like. In Jason's time, when he came in with us, and he, like you said, he was doing all the we had 15, 20 guys in our garage, 10 guys, and that's all they did was fight. And I saw my son, 11, 12 years old, getting dropped by grown men, because they were side kicking or dropping with a jab, and he'd get up, and I wouldn't get in the way, because sometimes we'd have mass attacks in the gym, like everybody fight everybody, right? And just they see who was going to come out, right?
That's what I was going to ask. Did that moment when you was training in the gym, did that inspire you to create your own business/gym? And did that push you to be the best when you had to go up against that bigger competition when that's all you had?
I don't think we ever really thought of it as being or me anyway, never thought of it as being best at anything. I think I just always thought of it as I should be able to do this as like a life skill almost, you know, because when I was coming up and we were starting to learn that, when I do remember actually training it and really doing the gritty stuff was like almost preteens. So it was like in my head, I was thinking like, if I have to get into a situation or something happens just because of like wherever we travel or we do something, because we were always going all over the place too, where he was going. You know,
I'll be honest with you, I never thought about this as a business.
Wow.
yeah, it was never a thought.
I never thought. All I thought about was, how can I get some more money so I can buy some focus mitts, some more gloves, so my guys that don't have gloves can have gloves.
And I was still going
then,
to play football and basketball and stuff.
I would have like my mats, my first set of mats I had in my gym, you know, I was going around the town, going to old gymnastics schools and ask them, hey, and I'd pay $10, $15 for those mats and I'd put them in my garage. And if you looked at my old garage, I got mats that are red, pink, yellow, green. I mean, they're all different colors. You know, we had carpet, I mean, anything we could. And once we started figuring this out, right? But we never thought about this, not even to this level.
Wow.
We never thought about this.
So with that being said, I guess pivoting to, a more, public side of y'all's life, what we try and do on this podcast is we want to like look a little deeper into more than just the martial artist, the fighter, or, you know, the thing that the people see in the public, more like the human side as well, right? But before doing that, what would you say, and this is for both of y'all actually, what would you say is y'all's biggest accomplishment in the public eye, and then to second that, in your own lives, like personally, what would you say is y'all's biggest accomplishment?
It's a really good question. Never thought about it like that.
I can tell you the first one for me, just because it's such an apparent thing lately, is having the birth of my daughter. I know it's not necessarily like, I guess, an accomplishment per se, of something that I guess achieved, but it put a lot of things in perspective as far as like, for me personally, it was like something that I felt like I kind of needed to have like more personal development. And not just personal development in the sense like, oh, you need to grow up, but something to experience to kind of understand, like, I guess, kind of understanding life a little bit better, you know? It puts things in perspective heavily, you know? And then it's funny because it's like everything else as far as like accomplishments almost feels like it kind of pales in comparison to something like that.
Wow.
You know? Like it's weird, but I guess that's my feeling on it, you know? But as far as like accomplishments in view, I think probably, because we can't actually say this, I don't know what you would think, but for me, accomplishments in view of like, in public view, is probably just the fact that we can run our own business and run it together as like a father and son. Because I know it's not a common thing. Like, I know it's not a common thing. Even though you hear like examples of it, you know, like Tiafimo or something like that, and his dad being his coach, or like these sports examples, it's like, it's hard to understand that not only was a coaching situation, but it's also a business situation.
Absolutely.
And it was like a really fine line I mean, don't get me wrong, we had our ups and downs with it, but it was a really fine line between finding that sweet spot of how things work, you know, and still working, you know.
That is
Yeah, I think like for me, the biggest accomplishment, honestly, like I'm just bounce off what he said, but honestly, you know, is our relationship in this long doing it together. That's personal. I mean, it really is for me, because what people don't realize is that, you know, father and sons everybody, you grow through this. And this goes through to any part of your growth of any child that you bring it up. They're your kids. They're going to do what you told them. They're going to raise them, and they need to do what you tell them, right? And that's your job to do that. They're not your friend. You know, they're not your best friend. They're your son or your daughter. This day, how old are you?
36.
He is my best friend now, right? At 30-something years old, he became my best friend. You know, up to that point, he was like my son, you know. And for the longest time, you know, like what people, a long time ago when Jason was like 16 years old, 15 years old, he was getting really good at competition and so forth. I had one of the black belts came over to me. He's from Brazil. He told me, he says, man, it's wonderful to see y'all to work together, but unfortunately, y'all going to have a division. You're going to have to send him somewhere else to go train. because y'all not going to be able to get along. Y'all not going to be able to do this together because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that right at the time, right? And as the time went on, I think our relationship got bigger, stronger. But I'll be honest, there's a third element to this, which we speak very little of, and she's behind the scenes. Is my wife.
Yeah.
She is.
Holds it together.
Yes, and my wife is everything, right? And if we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for her.
Holds it together.
Be honestly, because she's the one that pushed us to come over. She says, "You guys have gotten too big where we lived at, and everybody wants at y'all, and I never see y'all, and y'all are always on the road." And so she's the one that pushed us to do this, right? Mm-hmm. But our relationship, right, went on because the biggest thing between he and I, as the years went on, was when he went out to compete or we would do things. I always told him, "You trust me, I trust you," and you go out there and compete, right? And we don't. You trust me. This is our thing. You trust me, I trust you. And so we knew that. I couldn't be there sometimes, and somebody would coach him and try to. And
she's
anything,
coached me a couple of times.
Yeah,
too.
actually,
I think
my
that's
wife
what a
did
lot
too.
of guys don't understand is that
it's-
technically speaking, she can actually coach through positions and know
She knows.
scoring, even like
She knows very well.
The parents used to compete, right? In karate.
Oh, snap. Oh, snap.
And and so that dynamic, I think, is the one thing personal is that being able to hold on to our relationship and respect each other and now become best friends at it. That's and that has nothing to do with it, making money or anything, but it's part of being enjoyable. The part of this part that the other part on the other side is you guys. I have, this is my family now, right? This is our real family. People, I get it. People say in the gyms, but the inspiration of what we do here comes from you guys, When you want to come here and you want to leave everything out there and come here and spend your 1 hour with me and Professor Jason and you stay here with us, it means a lot because you'll never get that hour back. And you'll get 30 minutes and that 30 minutes to get here, right? It's 2 hours. That's 2 hours you'll never get back. And you have chosen to be here with us, right? So I have to, really respect that, right? But, like I said, for me, and I can, you guys are part of the gym, but there's so many different things that go on the floor with different lives and everybody, but we all have one common denominator is that we become one good teammate with each other when we're out there on the floor, right? And trying to respect that, right? And, there's some people that are not here anymore because if you're good, you're good. You're going to mix in. If you're not with us, you're probably going to filter yourself out, or I will help you get filtered out, right? But it's going to work something like that. But honestly, the part is not for me. It wasn't just the business, but it's everybody in this whole gym that have changed our lives. I mean, it's so deep, guys. That I love my family, my real family, the ones that I grew up with, right? My brothers and sisters. This is how deep it was for us. Is that the day he got married, and I invited my immediate brothers and sisters, and then I just invited people from the gym.
Yeah.
And I didn't invite my cousins, my nephews, and I called my brothers and sisters. I put them together, and I told them, "Hey, look, we're gonna have Jason's getting married. I'm gonna invite you guys, but just you and your wife. But I'm not gonna invite your brother, my nephews, my cousins. I'm not inviting everybody." I said.
And even for my wife too, it was an important deal just because she's, of course, you guys know she trains here. She sees you guys all the time too. Right. So everybody here is like extended.
This is our real family, and we felt that way, that strong about it, that we didn't invite any other family.
I think that's why so many people stay here. It's that camaraderie, it's that family oriented style that you really don't get at. I don't want to say any other gym, but not many gyms, right? A lot of gyms are strictly ran as like a business or strictly ran on the opposite side as like a competitive gym.
Yeah. Well, there's different models. Yes. There's different models how everybody runs their gyms. None of them are wrong. It's just how you choose to run your gym. We don't have people filtering in and out of here. Our curriculum, our retention is very good because we address with people, we work with people, they know us, and right now I'm seeing my second and third generations kids come in here now, and the brother or the sister of that generation, they're bringing their kids because they knew who I was or they knew what we represented, right? So, and people that moved from my old hometown, El Campo, that live here, down here, now they're searching me out over here, So, little by little, you lay a foundation like that. And so for me, like I said, watching everybody grow up here, there's a little girl here that she happens to be the same name as my granddaughter, Isabella. Wow. And she grew up here as a baby. She came in here like this in And today she's 15, 16 years old, and she's in my kickboxing class. She's been in here the whole time.
And
She grew up in this thing, man, all the way.
Crazy.
She is the baby of all, and I think that's really cool, to see that, And again, like I said, just martial arts is not always just necessarily just about the fighting stuff, right?
I provide a lot of hope in here because there was a time, man, I was in a dark spot. I was in a dark place, man. I gave up on myself. I tell you the truth. He'll tell you I wanted to give up on all this. I wanted to just quit doing what I was doing. And then, as y'all know, I left because I was chasing something I should have been chasing. I was out of my mind. I was, when you're a young man, you trying to find yourself. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to find out who I was. I was on that journey, man. I got in that accident and I lost everything I thought I had. I knew one place I had hope in was everybody in here. Everybody. When I was in the hospital, everybody from the gym contacted me. That was it. Even my immediate friends didn't talk to me. So first thing I knew I was going to do, I was going to come back here. Even if I was overweight, even if I was down, every time I walked in here, everybody just loved me. Coach Jason takes time with me. Felt like a big brother. And I'm the oldest. I never had that relationship. And you're like another father dynamic. I never had that type of relationship with me. So it's really cool. I do want to thank you guys for helping me get out that dark space. Because now I feel like I'm being more me. You know what I'm saying? And y'all helped a lot of people doing that same process. I know sometimes y'all may not know what people going through, but y'all have helped people for a very long time. And that's why God continues to keep helping y'all.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, not part of the reason why I wanted to do this episode, why it's so special, is because I feel like, I know it doesn't matter to y'all as much because y'all aren't very public people, right?
Yeah.
Y'all keep everything in-house. It's all private, right? But they don't get to see that side of you, right? So when they talk about y'all, whether it's on a UFC, MMA broadcast, whatever, it's not what we all see, and we're just all like, what are they talking about, right? And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this. But y'all touched on it earlier, right? You were talking about Jason getting dropped with side kicks at like age 12 by a grown man. And how the black belt said that eventually it was going to come a time where y'all split. As I actually want to talk to Jason about this as a son in this student coach father-son dynamic. How do you handle that? Both the good times where everything's going good and everything looks like rainbows and sunshine, and then in the dark times as well, because they're going to come no matter what you do.
I think probably the thing that matters the most on the whole issue as far as the relationship is like the respect that goes in between. But I don't think we very rarely ever like have discussed it. But like when I started, it was never I was pushed to start it. I was left to the choice to want to start it. So anytime I did it, it was like kind of my own free will. And then whenever I decided to start doing like more competitive stuff and getting out there and trying to do stuff, like my earliest was actually karate. And it's funny because he talks about how they got kicked out of karate schools. I got kicked out of karate tournaments. I got disqualified a couple of times for excessive contact or excessive force, whatever it happened to be. Yeah, because I was taught, how to throw the real round kick. And I thought, oh, well, this kid's going to hit me. I'm not going to sit there and just take a light something and throw it back, right? So I was always like, and even if I got disqualified or something happened to me in the matches, it didn't bother me all that much. It really didn't when I was younger. I mean, of course, losses hurt, like a little bit older, the more you get as far as like the experience, you think something of yourself, right? But at the same time, like the maturity side of it kicks in, I guess, from having the respect to just, like he said, say trust is a lot of it, and so just trusting the fact that he knew that it was for a reason. I was like, okay, well, yeah.
Was there ever a time where you like doubted if he maybe had your best interest in mind?
When it comes to doing any of like the competitive stuff, honestly, no, I can't say no. I can't really think of any time, to be honest with you. I mean, there are times that like I didn't want to actually like say like maybe compete that day, but I mean, no. I mean, I can't really say of anything that I was steered in the wrong direction of that, or felt that I was steered in the wrong direction of. Like even when I stopped doing professional MMA, I kind of wanted to keep going. We had like a lot of momentum. We had a lot of excitement. I think I got like a couple different offers from some really good organizations, UFC even one of them. And I was thinking, I was like, man, I could keep doing this. but we were also running the gym. And so I was kind of like, again, left to kind of make a choice of like between the two. And then also in my last fight, it was very, very like scary too. Even though like I was still left to make the choice, you know, I could go to him for advice on a lot of this stuff, but it was like I was sitting there kind of contemplating the whole issue just because it was an issue between like whether or not I could lose eyesight potentially, or, you know, maybe be fine, or I could take a little bit of a safer route and something that I already love doing and, you know, go with the business. And I was okay with not fighting. You know, I kind of had already achieved all that stuff already. Honestly, fighting in the UFC really, it was exciting, but just the idea of just getting there was just that was my achievement, I guess, was when I got like an invite for something like that, or from like something from overseas too, like even Combat Americas and stuff. But, you know, it was cool, but I like taking the choice of doing this, I guess, just because everything else that came after it, you know, like not just the immediate stuff that happened right then and there, but I like how it turned out. You know, I don't doubt it. And all the situations, really, I can't say ever turned out in a way that I didn't enjoy. And it's always, they say, like, you trust like what your father's going to say. You know, you have to have the respect to do that. So
yeah, and I mean, who are you going to trust more as a coach than your father, right?
Yeah.
That's actually something I was.
But like I said, I think a lot of that too, though, is you see a lot of the internal conflict between like a father and son couple is just because the father ends up pushing way more, or even like father-daughter couples or any other, offspring, father, even mother dynamic. I mean, look at Ronda Rousey, you know. But you see like a lot of conflict with that stuff just because eventually, yeah, I think you should push kids to do things. But it's a fine line between like pushing them and motivating them to do it versus like forcing them to do it. You know, sometimes as they get older, because they're going to want to rebel. You want to find out what you're doing, you know. But I still had the freedom to kind of go do things. Like I said, I played football and, basketball and stuff like that in middle school, going into high school. But it just wasn't the same to me just because I didn't like the idea of relying on other people to get a job done that I know I could probably do myself. Yeah. You know, was a bigger thing. And that was a lot of independence, and that was a lot of the upbringing as far as like what I got out of my parents, my mom included too. She left me up to the decision, oh, I'm going to go do this today. Do you want to come with me, or do you want to go train? Do you want to do this? Do you want to go do that? Right. But it was always two choices to do that, options, Yeah.
And before we're getting to your side of it, actually, I wanted to touch on that whole like UFC topic, because at the same time, for people who not even just train, but who compete in MMA at the professional or amateur level, right? Almost everyone sees that as the goal, right? They see that as the pinnacle. That's where everyone wants to be, and they want the notoriety that comes with it. They want the fame, the fortune, right? And all that comes with it to reach the pinnacle. I know you're a big stoic junkie like myself. Epictetus has a quote, right, where he says, "Don't trust in your reputation, money, or position, but in the strength that is yours, namely your judgments about the things that you control and don't control. For this alone is what makes us free and unfettered, that picks us up by the neck and from the depths and lifts us eye to eye with the rich and powerful." You talked about freedom a couple of times in your answer beforehand, and talking about the choice not to or to turn down a UFC contract. What does that word freedom really mean to you?
I guess freedom is kind of like, for that situation for me, that was a really big one, just because, I kind of wanted to do the fight, but also then I looked at it like from a monetary standpoint. And I guess the freedom for me is like, what's going to give me, what choice is going to give me not necessarily the immediate instant gratification, but what's going to give me the long-term benefits. So when I think freedom, yeah, it might be a little bit of problematic. You might have to do a little bit of work right now, but it's going to pay off in the end, And I think people need to have like choices like that too, and kind of like look at it also, probably stop and be patient to look at it from the long-term thing, just because patience is something that it always has to be practiced, True. But yeah, it was hard to get that, even though you're being told that, and to like always be preached patience, because he used to say that all the time. Because even when I was like, I think even when I was like 17, 15, 16 almost, people were already asking, because there were underground shows here in Texas, is what a lot of guys didn't know. They were bare knuckle stuff, or they would do open palm, basically like pancration stuff, or some of the guys actually did full on like like bare knuckle stuff.
Before it was all sanctioned.
Yeah, before it was all sanctioned. And they were having like little bitty pop-ups, and guys would say, they need guys to look for this show, or, there's a fight going on here for so much money. And so they were even asking then if I was going to go do it, And so far, my only practice up until that point really had just been training the JKD stuff and honestly doing the jiu-jitsu, as well as like maybe every now and then getting in like an actual like MMA sparring, but we didn't call it MMA. It was just like, hey, we're just going to cross-train spar today. Everything mixed in, And so that was my experience with it. And I wanted to do it, but I was never really like, oh my God, I need to try this, until probably, I think maybe like when I got to brown belt, just because I had done so much jiu-jitsu at that point. I was just like, I had been touching on like more like increasing levels of things that were difficult along the way. And it just kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I've done this so many times. It doesn't feel like it should feel like when I get in there. Like I want to feel a little bit of the rush and have to force myself to control those emotions and things like that as I'm going through it, and then implement a strategy, because it was more of like a really high level game to me than it was necessarily like competition. For that reason also too, though, I had to fix the mindset about MMA too, which is something we talk about a lot, because I always thought of it as a game. So I was never really like, oh my God, the consequences of this could be truly severe if I messed up at pro level. So, I had to change my mindset on that too. But yeah, like I said, it's like circling back to like the original, like kind of thought, I guess, like I said, the freedom to look at those outcomes, but then also I like the process of things. So those long drawn out things, I'm okay with learning the patient side of it to kind of see that now.
So you felt like the longer, more delayed gratification route actually serves your freedom better.
Yep. Being disciplined and being patient and knowing and trusting that, yeah, it's a smarter route. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it'll pan out.
And in the end, look how many people that walk through that door and they positively affect every day.
Yeah.
Every single day.
And that delayed gratification, not everybody gets that. But now flipping to you on the dad's perspective and the coach's perspective, how has it weighed on you watching him go through all that, right? Watching him nearly lose his eyesight through a love of his that he shared with yours. Like you said, right? He, in this whole process, he went from being your son and also your student to your best friend, right? So
I can tell you that one is that I always knew Jason was a fighter. Always. When Jason was little, my mom would spank him and he wouldn't cry. And she would tell me, ay, Joe, es muy macho. Joe, he's too macho. He will not cry. I would spank him and he would not cry. I'd give him a choice. Go outside, go with your cousins, or kneel down and, think about what you did wrong, or take the 5 licks. I'll take the 5 licks. He always took the hard way too. So I knew this kid was a tough kid from the very get-go. Yeah, and so there was, and my wife even says, he's worse. I mean, you were worse than that, Joe. And I said, I wasn't like that. Yeah, you were. My mom, and he goes and works out in the middle of the night and hurt him. She said, you do that all the time. She said, you used to do that all the time. I said, I didn't go. She said, yes, you did. We couldn't go out anywhere until you got your workout. No matter where we're going, you had. So I knew it wasn't a question of that, of him doing any of that stuff. It's like, for me, I think it was more that I knew in the long run, honestly, and I used to tell him this all the time, use everything as an experience. And I mean, I know everybody says this, but I really meant it. And I said, and there were opportunities in which I'm going to share one with you. And I hope you don't mind, I'm sharing this one.
Absolutely.
But there was one in which there was a year, I think Jason was late blue belt, almost getting his purple already. And we went through a whole year, and he submitted, I don't know how many people in a row, never lost a tournament. There was numerous tournaments, because sometimes we would fight 2 or 3 tournaments a month. If we could go, we'd be going to Oklahoma, to Dallas, anywhere we could find a tournament, we were going, because he wanted to compete, right? And I just told him, hey, I'll do it if you want to do it. So me and my wife would get in the car and go. So anyways, we went a whole year like this, right? And he had an awesome year. And, you know, we went through and so we got to the Pan Ams, and it was just like the second time we had been there, I think, to the Pan Ams. And in the first round, he makes a mistake. You know, he gets the guy. Jason's ahead 4-0. The guy, they step outside, and the guy did first time, and the referee brings him back in. You know, he stops the action and brings him back in. The second time, the kid's Brazilian again. You know, they're both. This is in the early days, right? So then the next happens. Jason steps out first, right? And then he thinks the referee's going to bring him back in. Bring him back in. Instead, the guy jumps into the air, does a flying triangle on Jason, and he finishes Jason on the first round. You know, in the first round, we were 100% sure Jason was going to win this tournament. You know, it was one of the biggest tournaments around. We're going to win this tournament for sure. You know, I'm glad he didn't win it. We learned so much more from that. And he became such a much better person. Even not that he wasn't, but he learned so much more for the future. And here's what I mean. After that match happened, and that gives me chills to this day, right? That he lost that match, and we were in a basketball gym. A lot of people, some people might remember, but when we were at the tournament, they were held at the basketball gym. It wasn't held at the pyramid yet. And so he went out the back door. You know, he was very, you know, they announced that the guy, he shook his hand. He's always been very respectful, win or lose or draw, whatever. And he went out the back door. But I could tell he was furious. He was very upset. And so I was in the bleachers, and my wife said, "You're going to go get him?" I said, "No, leave him alone." So I went to go, 30 minutes, 40 minutes went by. I went to go see him, and he was really upset. He was crying. He turned around. He told me, "Yeah, I worked so hard this year. I deserve to win this." And I was going to, you know, I made the, I don't know. He didn't even say he missed. He says, you know, he was, you know, and I said, "Hey," I said, "I know you don't want to hear this right now." I said, "But I promise you," I said, "one day," I said, this situation," I said, "it's going to happen to one of your students." I said, "And you're going to be able to share their experience with him." I said, "I know you don't want to hear this and you can't see this right now, but I promise you one day it's going to happen. You're going to understand." I said, "Then you'll understand." I said, and I understood because I've had some really bad losses in my lifetime, and maybe not sports-wise or anything, but you realize where they're at. And I just leave him alone, right? To this day, right? We've had many people have lost, you know, things that we thought they should have won or whatever, you know, and he understands that, and he can go to you guys now, and he's been on both sides of it, win, lose, or draw, you know, and I think that was the deal that we're talking about, is that when we get to that point, that was the journey, that was the deal, and there's many, many more stories like this that I could tell you that he and I went through, and I wouldn't exchange them for nothing.
And do you think that conversation you had with him was more the coach, like you're his coach, or was it more you're his father? Because I know he's also had that conversation with me during my losses, right? Like you said, he would be able to use it one day and help somebody out, right? And I know that he shared words with me after one of my losses, right? That really helped me and helped me to continue to progress and drive through that adversity. But like, yeah, would you say that was more the coach in you? Because he's a coach to me, even though sometimes it feels more like a brother, right? Or like even a father figure like yourself. Or was that more the father in you too?
Well, I will tell you, no, that's an interesting question, because on my way to go talk to him, I was thinking about, what am I going to tell him? And I approached it as a father, but I told him as a coach. And, yeah, there was one other situation that happened. We went to Corpus Christi, Texas, and to a tournament, because there was one kid in which he almost would fight him almost every time. The kid would never make the finals, but the kid was good. We knew he was good. And I told Jason, you know, Jason hadn't been beat like in a year and a half or so, almost 2 years. He was smoking everybody, right, as a blue belt. And no, you know, and I told him, we're going to go down there. We're going to compete against this kid. We're going to find him over there. So and Jason, I want to go, you know. So we got in the car and we went down there. We drove 3.5, 4 hours down there, right? And we run into the guy. And sure enough, Jason and him end up in the finals, you know, finally, right? And guess what? Jason hadn't lost, been submitted, nothing for almost a year and a half. He hadn't, he
I
did,
remember that one.
yes. And
That wrecked shop on
because
that
he
night,
was,
too. I
because he
up
was,
in points
he was,
and everything.
on that day, he schooled everybody on that day. He was,
fighting you like a Michael Vick Pitbull. He was having people around the country. He said, I got my money. He about to win.
he was a solid blue belt. He was a blue belt. I don't know, how long were you a blue belt, you think?
It was a little while.
He was a blue belt, not only 2 years, like maybe 3 years. Because we didn't promote people, man. I mean,
You had to work.
you had
Yeah, we didn't have all these other like
Not like today.
colors
Everybody,
and stripes.
you know.
Stripes weren't a thing back then.
It's like advanced. You're almost a black belt, right? Back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
I
something
mean,
they thought of it.
but
Yeah,
and that's why I think sometimes in here, even sometimes I'm pretty tough still about giving blue belts out because
work.
that's the level that I've always established for anybody or purple, because if you get purple under me, that means you're 80%. You're right there to be in black belt. You already know. You just got to put your time and get the experience, right? But on this particular kid, right? So he gets in there and he's up on this kid like 6-0. The kid comes back on him, it's 4-6. And then all of a sudden he submits Jason, right? And Jason loses. So on this day, he not only, he loses, he gets submitted, and then he fights the second round. I told him he's all upset. And I said, "You gonna fight the second round?" You know, he goes, "Yeah." And guess what? He loses the second round. His mind wasn't there anymore, you know? And he lost the match. Actually, he got submitted. I think he got twice, right?
I think so.
Twice on that day, right? And it was the first time that happened. So we got in the car and we know the tournament was over. We drove home. We drove 4 hours. We never said a word to each other, not a word. And I didn't push it on. You know, I said, "You want something to eat?" He said, "No, I'm good." So we went all the way home. We didn't speak of this day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know. And I left it alone. I said, whenever. So one day I'm sitting in my room, my bedroom. And he walks in and knocks on the door. "Dad, can we talk? We got a minute?" And I said, "Sure, come in." So we talk, and he says, "I want to talk about that fight, that tournament." I said, "Sure, will you?" Then he just told me the expectations that had been put on him. At the gym, everybody looked up to him so high, and this and there was a lot of pressure. And that he said, "I actually felt good about losing it, and that finally I lost because like it was off him because everybody was like so on him." But he can tell you probably more about it. But that was one of the deals. As a coach, I sat there and I told him, you know, these things are going to happen. I said, "Look, you don't listen to the noise outside. You got to listen to yourself, listen to your coach, listen to what's real, not the noise." I said, "That's what you listen, and you put all that noise and all that pressure on you, that because you hadn't lost in a year and a half or so, and everybody at the gym said, 'Oh, he's a protege.' They were using the word protege all the time, so it was on him. I didn't see it, you know. I didn't see that, you know, on the outside, but he felt it, right?
Yes.
So that was one of the things that we dealt with. But as a coach, that's where I went with him. You know, that was totally coaching, no father. That was totally coaching. You need to listen to yourself. I said, "Do it." I said, and I told him, "You don't need to compete anymore for a while." I said, "You need to stop." I said, we're going to rest because I want you to go back to the gym, keep training, but have fun. Now you're going to go back out and have fun. Forget about it." And once he started having fun again, everything went back to normal again. But yeah, just, you know.
Yeah, and I was also going to touch on that, right? Because now there's a rumor that you armbarred the doctor when you came out the womb.
Wait a minute. Wait. Time out. Wait. Get that a second. Let that ride. Wait. Did he tap? I want to know that.
So
Can't remember that far back.
So one of our best friends, Mike Smith, and one of my black belts as well.
Oh yeah. Mike came with that.
He did that. One day there was at a tournament here in Houston. It was the Houston Open, and Jason was fighting a couple of guys in this division. You got, what people don't realize today is that when Jason was competing, these divisions were stacked by well-known people. I mean, today, if you go to a tournament, nobody even knows who anybody is. At that time, a week, 2 weeks before the tournament, people were signing up. Oh man, people would show up just to watch a certain division, especially his division, because he had so many good guys in his division, and everybody knew him.
Yeah, back in the day too, the guys weren't just thinking like jiu-jitsu just to be famous at sport jiu-jitsu. Everybody's intention was to go into MMA in the future. So they fought and trained. Like
and these same group of guys would fight in Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. They were all, and people were betting money on the side. My cousins would show up to bet money on Jason if he's going to get so-and-so. And, you know, we never knew, right? But,
Wow.
I mean, people didn't realize, you know, that these are some of the things that would happen with some of these tournaments that they would enter, man. So, like,
And going off that, like, so he got a lot of hype from being in those divisions, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like you said, in the gym and in your circle started calling him a prodigy or,
Well,
a lot. And
he got to be so well known, Noah, that Pablo Popovitch, that was fighting Marcelo Garcia.
Yeah, they sent me a good little message.
He flew down here from Florida and looking to recruit guys that could mimic Marcelo Garcia's game. And he came down here and he saw Jason.
Taught a seminar, didn't he? He taught a seminar.
Well, he came to the tournament where you were competing, and he came over to me and he says, "Is that your son?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I would like to talk to him." I says, "I have an opportunity for him." I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know it was Pablo. I didn't recognize him, right? So he's a big, strong guy. So anyways, he talked more. He told Jason. And then he started talking to Jason. He says, "I like the way you move. I've been watching you compete. I see you, blah, blah, blah." He says, "Hey, I would like to take you to Florida." He says, "And I want you to be in my camp." And he's, and I want you to, because you move really well, like a Marcelo Garcia, like. So I would like to come to my camp. He said, "I will pay for everything. Paid for his plane ticket, where he stayed, his food, everything. He was going to take care of him, right?"
My legs were bigger than the rest of my body too, like Marcelo.
He was a lot bigger.
It took me a while to grow the rest
At
of
the
my
time,
body. It took a couple of years to get to where I'm at. My legs were bigger than everything.
Right.
I mean, they're still pretty big, but they were bigger.
And so they flew him down there, right?
I think I matched the body type a little bit.
And that, like I said, everybody. There was another guy that was really super good. A couple of guys that Tony Tipton and Albert Hughes, and there was a bunch of good guys back in that era, and everybody, they always showed up, and people were like questioning, "Hey man, so and so's fight." So back to the subject with Mike was that this big tournament, all these guys were showing up to this tournament. So somebody said, "Oh, so and so and so," and Mike Smith steps his head in and goes, "Hey man, that ain't nothing." He said, "Y'all heard of Jason Solis, the legend of Jason Solis? Yeah, he armbarred the doctor when they pulled him out." That's who he is. Yeah, that's where it came from. Yeah, Mike Smith came up with that.
I do have a good question for you though. Now I remember Coach Joe was just talking about that everybody had that hype on him, but with that hype, there's a process. You don't start off that way. I remember like when we was in high school, I was super small. Nobody ever thought about me. Nobody thought of nothing. I was just a guy. But I worked so hard to get to be that guy that everybody was going to talk about. So they don't see the process. But when you deal with that internal battle where you have to live up to it, that's the hardest part. How'd you beat that one?
Man, I'll be honest with you. There's probably anytime I lost, probably right after that instance we came back from Pan. Actually, I think I might have been closer to a brown belt then, if I remember correct. But when I think about like that instance, because up until that point, when I thought about competitions and stuff, the other thing that motivated me, other than just like, I guess, everybody else thinking about it and stuff and all the talk and everything like that, other than like wanting to do it myself, like to kind of challenge myself, was I also looked at it, I was like, man, they're spending a lot of money to cart me around to do all these things to all these different places, to get these experiences, do the thing eventually that maybe I might want to do. So that was like probably more pressure on me when I thought about it kind of like that, just because I was like, I knew it was like a hassle, going from place to place every single weekend. And that's before it even became like that. Like now you see that in jiu-jitsu, like the parents bring their kids all over the place. You see like, almost looks like a peewee football out there, in the parking lot. They're feeding them snacks and stuff, all kinds of stuff. They make an event of the day, right? And but this is like before that. And I guess my mind was more on those things a couple of times after losing, but then after that last one where I lost at Pans, just because I remember thinking all that stuff in my head too, like, oh, this happened. And then I just remember thinking like, oh man, that's a lot to like really like when I got back, I remember thinking that I was like, that's a lot to really like throw on my back to sit there and think that I have control over all of that stuff. Like, I have no control technically over really whether there's a win or a loss. All I can do is just put the effort forward and, try to do what I'm doing. And if it feels like I can, then I will, so that's kind of how I started looking at it. And that usually, that was probably right after brown belt, I think, if I can remember correct, as I started thinking about that. And the reason I say I highlight the brown belt is just because that's even really before I started going into MMA and like competing in the Muay Thai or kickboxing or boxing, like, yeah, I lost and it sucked to lose just because I'm competitive, but it wasn't like there was a ton of pressure to win. Like, even when I fought MMA the first time, the anxiety didn't come from winning or losing. The anxiety came from the fact that, oh, I get to actually do MMA for once. Like, somebody's going to let me put the gloves on and get in there and just do what I want to do. That's where it came from. Not because I was like nervous about winning or losing. I mean, yeah, there's a thought in your head, but it's not like, I mean, you get used to practicing pushing that to the back of your head because you shouldn't be thinking about it,
Well, I could tell you just off note, but his first real MMA fight, we were the first ones at Elite that had a cage, right? And everybody used to line up when we had challenges. I was fighting challenge fights, and I was, we'd put the little gloves on, fight, and I was working, and they'd call me up. Hey, there's about 10 guys lined up outside the window. They're ready to.
This
is back in the
also back when Tough Man was still on and it was still Spike TV back then.
Yeah, and this is back in the days where we had a long start beatdown.
Yeah.
They didn't have all this
like
stuff yet. This is the early days. This is really early. Yeah. And Mick Maynard was still in College Station, and him and Eric Williams were matchmaking and stuff. So a lot of people would come out there to try out stuff. But one day, after a couple months or whatever, one day I get there and Jason runs up to me. Jason's like, what are you, 15, 16 years old?
Something like that.
Yeah. And he walks up to me and he runs up to me and he says, Dad, Eric says I could jump in. He got the guys, I want to fight Dad. He showed me these gloves. I said, Jason, Dad, let me, come on, Dad. I said, Jason, hold on. He just rushes me like I just got home from work, right? And the kid wants me to go somewhere. But he runs up to Dad, look at these. I said, those aren't even MMA gloves, Jason. I said,
they were like bag gloves, and they had specially packed them.
Yeah, they had sand.
Like padding and sand, right? Dude.
And I said, Jason,
because they were not up to a regular bag, so they stitched them.
Eric said I could wear these because, he says, because those guys are really big.
The only thing they had that was like an MMA.
I told Jason, I don't know. I told Jason, I don't know. I don't know if we should do this. So come on, Dad. So he tells me, go to the office. And so I walk in the office, and Eric says, he starts grinning. And he goes, Jason wants to get in the cage. I said, I heard. I heard. He said, he'll be all right. He said, he's got a good skill set. I look at Jason. I said, "Boy, you better not tell your mama." That's the first. I said, "You better not tell your mama." I said, "If your mom finds out," I said, And he goes, "Come on, Dad. I won't say nothing." I was, Jason. I said, "One minute." I said, "Okay." It spread like wildfire in the gym. Oh. We have a big size gym. We had upstairs and downstairs, right? Yeah, and we had a big gym. So everybody, I was supposed to teach a JKD class upstairs. And usually I have 25, 30 people in the class, right? I go up there. And everybody walks, Coach, I'm going to be out. I'm like, where are you going? He's like, we're going to watch this. And I had to cancel the class just to let everybody go sit down on the stairs and crash. We could have sold tickets to that thing. He was already picking up. So he goes in there and he puts the whooping on this kid and back and forth. Grown man, not a kid. He was a grown man. And this is no joke. He beats the guy. The guy gets out of the cage. Jason, they let him give it the second time. Jason gets him second time. Then he walks out. The guy gets up, and he's so mad. He's so upset. He walks out. He's sitting on the curb, bro, outside in front of the glass. We had a lot of glass doors, and he's crying. A grown man crying, right? He's crying on the curb. And literally crying. And the guys go, I said, go check on him, see what's wrong with him. So he goes out there, and they said, I see him talking to him. He comes back. He says, what happened? He says, he's crying. He said, he really thought he was going to make it to the UFC, and he can't beat this kid. How is he going to make it to the UFC, right? And a lot of these guys, here's their resume. I've had like 100 street fights. I had I've never lost a fight. Nobody had less than 50 street fights that walked in there, right? And so they all think they're gonna win. So, and the worst part was the guy that told me this. That said that went to go talk to me. He told me, who is that kid? He said, oh, I don't know. He's not worried about whether he won or lost. He's worried about who's going to take to the prom on Friday. That's what he told me. And I go, what? He's that? Yeah, he's only 16 years old. What?
I honestly don't remember the fight. I remember fighting, or not fighting. It really wasn't a fight. But I remember getting in there twice. I don't remember how or necessarily what happened, other than I know I subbed him. But I do remember everybody watching, from the outside. I remember that very well, and I remember him sitting outside, and that was about all I remember.
It was packed in there, man.
You don't understand the pain. I remember when Noah got me here for said, "Man, come to the gym." I'm not knowing he's been doing this since high school, so I'm like, "Man, I'm gonna whoop his ass." I know for a fact. I don't even know how many street fights I had. Man, this dude came here, meet me up. I had black eyes, nose bleeding. I went home. I shed a tear. God damn. My own partner.
I mean,
You
these
made me
are.
feel bad. I know you did. I know
It's
you
just
did.
it's back in the day, like I said. I did all these crazy challenge matches and stuff like that. That would happen, you know. And
We used to have some guys come in though, like even like where we were at, because we were actually teaching at 2 spots. We were teaching at Elite, but we were also like still driving back and forth in to El Campo, and then when we moved up here, that was
man, I can't remember what the year was.
it was like maybe like
Bro,
06.
let me tell you how early this was. Daniel Pineda was there. Daniel Pineda showed up with another friend of his.
Yeah,
He wasn't there to do it. He was a wrestler, but he was watching, right? And he was watching, I guess, Jason and one of the other guys are.
I was helping one of the other guys get
Yeah,
ready for MMA.
yeah, and so
MMA.
he was there, but he hadn't even competed or nothing yet. I don't think that he had competed at all yet or done the MMA fight yet that I'm aware of.
Wow.
That's how early this was.
Deep, like I said, pioneers, right?
Yeah.
Deep.
Pioneers.
This is how early this was. Yeah.
Okay, so pivoting back to the public eye, right? People who might Google y'all, right? Gym owners, MMA fighter practitioners, right? MMA referee and judge yourself, right? And like we mentioned earlier, like I really can't remember a time where your name was brought up, either of y'all's name was brought up, and there was anything bad to say. Even coming out with the fact that we're actually going to do this episode for episode 100, all we were getting was, man, these people have helped me so much, right? Great coaches, even better people, right? And coming from where y'all came from, it's not always like that, right? Because y'all came from a harder like
Sure.
upbringing, right? But people in the public, right? Because there's 2 sides of the martial arts community. There's the people who are the casuals, who watch UFCs every week, and you train that UFC stuff, right? And there's people like that who are gonna like be looking you up, or
It's a pretty intense casual.
Yes, sir.
There's the other side, right? The hardcores, the people who trained before they really ever started watching, right? So I feel like in the public eye, sometimes you being a judge and being a judge of one of the most notable fights in the UFC, in John Jones versus Dominick Reyes, sometimes you could get a bad rap, right? Just because of how close people felt like the fight was, and everyone knows it's a hard job, but they're still gonna give shit to whoever's name was called, right? Whoever was scoring that fight, right? And I guess the question I wanted to ask you was, has that ever bothered you? Has that ever bothered you? People who don't know anything about you, don't know how much respect you really get on the local scene, or how many people go to you for advice, judging advice, refereeing advice, and things like that. But all they did was look you up, see your scorecard for this fight, and already make an opinion about you. Has that ever bothered you?
Can I mention?
Sure. What?
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut because I'm gonna say something and
No, I mean,
get us in trouble. I mean,
look, I'm only human. Right? And I have emotions just like anybody else, right? And to say that here and say, no, it doesn't bother me. Sure, it bothers me. Sure, it's bothering me. I'm being realistic about it. I mean, sure, it bothers me, right? But here's what I tell, Danielle, is one of the officials now too. And based on all my mistakes and all the stuff that's happened to me, I'm trying to bring her up and give her good examples of stuff to do, not to do, how to be, how not to be, right? And so and one of the things I'll tell you is that, look, with all this stuff, and it's going to happen, it happens to every official, right? And you're going to get bombarded with something. But here's the one thing that I do know, like, based on what you said, like, people that know who I am for real are important to me. And those are the ones that matter. But I know myself. I know my character. I've been doing this for a long time. I didn't, whatever I do, I always do it in the best for the person or whatever event I'm doing or whatever it is, right? So I know myself. Now, here's what will happen. I've seen other officials that this has happened to them and being in the public, and they don't come back. And they don't come back because they don't want to be in that scrutiny, right? And they don't want to be under that. And I understand it. I totally get it. But the reason I chose to come back and I didn't let anybody dictate how this is going to go was because I know myself. I know where I came from. I know what I did. I stand by whatever happened, whether you believe it or not. Maybe I called the wrong thing, but it was my call, and I'm telling you that's just how I saw it, whatever, right? But the point is this, is that you got to know yourself, right? And you build your character. And like you said a while ago, not everybody knows who you are, and some people say this or say that, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I mean, I know. So we know that game. But on the flip side of that, you have a lot of people don't like me because, like, for whatever they feel I represent, one, or two, they don't like what I got to say because here's my rule. Like, if you don't want me to tell you anything or explain anything about it, then don't open that door. Because if not, I will tell you exactly like it is. I don't have a problem, telling anyone about anything if you open that door. But don't expect to talk shit to me, and I'm not going to talk it back to you.
That's fair.
And I'm straightforward with that. And sometimes, that's in my son, this one too, and the other one too. My other son, Justin. That's like we say what's on our mind, and we may not always say as graceful, as graceful as some people, but that's my personality, right? It's like, but I know myself, and for that, what I say is this: is that you're everybody's entitled to opinion. And I don't judge anything. I just say, hey, leave it alone. I know where I'm at. And I'm good with that. And if you take anything from me, that and what I say now is that I do the best I can as a person.
Absolutely.
And I'm a true person. I'm not fearing, and I love my family, and I love this extended family. Mm-hmm. And that's, my circle's like that. I don't make up shit just to make up stuff to make myself look good. And people have even criticized us for that. I go in business meetings sometimes with people, marketing business, and they tell us the one thing that we need to improve here is ourselves. He says, y'all need to put yourselves out there more. You need to brag about yourself. You need to talk more about yourselves. And I'm like, I could, but I don't. Why? Because that's just not my personality.
Yeah.
I don't say, like you guys came out at the beginning, like Noah says, is that a lot of people don't know a lot about you guys, and they just hear this and that and whatever. And it's just because we don't put ourselves out there like that. Mm. And it's not that, that we're scared to, or it's not in our personality. We're Mexicans, and I guess we're a little conservative like that. And we've always and I brought him up like that to be very humble.
Yes.
And we try to be very humble in the matter, I could go on and tell you how many times, how many things, or how many people I've got into it with, or people I've kicked ass on and laying their names, but that's not important to me.
Your words speak for you.
Yeah, so I just leave it at that.
Yeah, and you also got to remember too, like, the thing that we see a lot more nowadays is, like, people are going to talk about you whether you want them to or not,
regardless,
online or off, right? Different communities, different families, whatever. So it's like, okay, well, I could sit there and I could listen to that stuff all the time and just let it bother me to eat away, which is what you see out of people nowadays. They get so locked into seeing all these comments on, like, social media or something like that, and they just read. And it's like, oh man, all you're doing is soaking in negativity. So what do you think you're going to feel like? Probably something negative. Mm-hmm. So remember, number one, the negative stuff is easier that comes out of people than usually positive stuff, right? But then number two, most of these people are pretty ill-informed. Even if there's somebody who's been in that arena of where they're talking about for a while, sometimes they don't even have all the information, right? Like, a good example of that was, I don't know if you guys ever heard the broadcast for NCAA a little while back. It was the Burroughs and Cormier.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And I'm not saying, like, Cormier doesn't know what he's talking about. It's just, since he's been in the game, it's changed. Mm. Right? And Burroughs is only in the game, right? Mm-hmm. So when you listen to the broadcast, like, the talking back and forth, you can hear where Burroughs is talking about things that may somewhat be a little bit of early knowledge or very, very late knowledge to him. And you can hear the interactions back and forth, and you see it on the floor. And then the suggestion by one commenter versus the other commenter. And it's like, okay, they're seeing it from the two different perspectives because one understands what the other's after, and he's seen that competitor so much. And the other guy has only done his homework for, like, maybe a month. No offense to him. It's just maybe he hasn't had as much time to delve into it. Mm-hmm. So he speaks on it from a little bit of a limited perspective, kind of like the commenters.
Everybody goes through some stuff like that. I mean, this is why, like, and even sometimes, like, no, even though some guys that train, they need to train. In my opinion, I think any official needs to train, right? Because even myself, the last couple of weeks, you guys seen me out there on the floor. I've been having guys put me in position with the little gloves and beat the crap out of me, right? Go on the side and figure out how to escape, or have somebody mount me and they're throwing punches in my face. Because I also want to be able to say, when my fighter's down there and I'm refereeing a fight, I can see how much he's taking, what's he experiencing mentally, physically, everything, right? And luckily, I'm young enough and I'm athletic enough and physically good where I can take all that. So I have a young kid on the side hitting me, taking my back, trying to choke me out and hit me. And I go through these, right? Because I've done it before with him many, many times, right? But it's been a while. So it's good to go back and revisit that, right? And so I think all officials, need to be able to do something, right? They need, because, and then also study, because even to this day, right now, even though as long as I've been doing this, I still go back and study. I still go watch fights. I still go listen to the other guys. I keep an open mind all the time, right? Because, and like, every situation is different. And what I tell the more experienced people now is that the judging wise, or I would say refereeing wise, is that it's not the big stuff that's going to get you. It's the little details that you got to pay attention to. Getting between somebody, stopping a fight or stopping a submission, that's easy. It's still little things, the little mechanical things that happen during the fight, like when they go down, how their hands hit. What is your demeanor? Where are you at between the break of the fight? All these are all these different little things that people don't really pay attention to, but they distinguish what a good official's going to be.
Because we looked at that last time. I think we were at a Fury fight. I think you might have been fighting one time at Fury, and we were watching a fight where the guy got hit, and the guy stepped in really early to stop the fight, even though the guy went from, it was more like a slip, and so like even the other guy didn't realize he had like clipped him, and he went back and he went hands first to the mat and pushed himself back, and then the referee stepped in. Right. And they had to call it. And I was like, oh man, it's like that was kind of an error in the little bit of the perspective, just because it looked like he was really close behind one of the fighters.
And
so, it was like
something to bring up even more recently. Like, you're always talking about, like.
But then again, we don't know what he saw in there too for his defense. Maybe that was, who knows? Maybe that was a different reaction than what we interpreted, because we're all the way up here in 100 plus feet up in the air, looking at it from the cage, so
can't see my balls.
Yeah. And so I'm always hearing you say, because you're mentoring Danielle and doing officiating and things like that, right? I'm always hearing you talk about spacing, right? Spacing of how close you are to a fighter, being able to be okay with seeing damage before actually stopping a fight, right? And different things like that obviously the public has no idea about, but that you actually have to be cognizant of. And I think a recent example, not to bring any names into it, but like Mark Smith with the Brandon Moreno stoppage recently, a lot of people were complaining.
Which was that? I don't know if I was there for that.
Moreno fought Tatsuro Taira.
Yeah. I didn't get to pay too much attention to that. We had the baby and I was trying to watch back and forth.
But the problem is that I feel like is he was too close the whole time. Like he was almost not, he wasn't involved in the fight, but like there was a point in the first round where Brandon Moreno had his back and stuff had him in a triangle, right? He had him in a submission, and he was almost thinking about stopping the fight and standing them back up. Like he was so close, almost like he was about to intervene, saying work, while he was in a triangle choke. And maybe it wasn't choking him all the way, but you're not gonna stand someone up.
He was just sitting there,
right?
It's always.
But then it comes to the next round, and then Moreno, I think, gets clipped or something, gets taken down and gets put into that back flat position. Not eating the worst shots, just like multiple shots, almost like an amateur stoppage that you see, right? Where they hit him with a little flurry of punches, and it's the numbers that accumulate that consist to the stoppage. But Brandon Moreno's still moving, but because he's so close, it's like he was already there to
nothing on him, but it's just that he's the one that's there. He's looking at. But I'm gonna tell you what. The hardest thing I think for any official is trying to stop a fight when the other guy is still physically capable, but is getting beat. And that's what you're talking about, right there. Because we've seen guys saying that, like the O'Malley fight that had where the kids, and he's beat up, and you're trying to make a decision. You're letting him go. He's still in the fight. You're trying to let him go, and then And then you got people like, you know, like Dominick Reyes, Dominick Cruz that says, let me go out on my shield, let me die, you know, whatever. And it's, he's right and he's wrong. He's right because you need to know who the fighter is. How much is he durable? You know, what can he take? What can he not take? How has he been in this type of fight? You know, right? And so, but at the same time, the bottom line for us is this. If we're going to do what the right thing is to do to keep that fighter safe, bottom line, even though this fighter comes to me and he tells me I'm going to go out on my shield and I'll agree with him. I know how tough you are and so forth. Yeah, I'll take into consideration, but I'm going to do the right thing. When it's time, you know, and it's very hard. Let me tell you, that's probably one of the hardest decisions for any official is trying to let that fight continue while he's getting beat up and you know it's time, right? But in the minute you stop, why did you stop it? Look, I wish the coaches would stop it sometimes, to be honest with you. Like,
they do sometimes.
Because you're seeing 2 rounds, he's getting beat up pretty good, and why give him that 3rd round? Like, you know he's already lost 2. He's going to have to knock him out in that 3rd round, and he's not capable of doing it.
You can see it in the body language of the corner.
Sure.
Sometimes they see their fighters getting beat. They almost has no chance, and it's almost like they're just waiting for him to get knocked out before they actually do. Like, they stop giving advice.
Again, I'm not here to coach any coach to tell him what to do, but, you know, that is your responsibility, you know, as a coach, right? But as an official, I will tell you that, you know, our job is, regardless of what you tell me, how hard, how tough, yes, I will listen to you and I'll take in consideration, but I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to keep you safe. And when it's time, it's time. And it doesn't matter if it's Joe Blow, that's my best friend, or Jackson over here, that's not my best friend. It's going to be the same way when it comes to. So I know a lot of coaches think that, oh, he's stopping a fight you, or he does this, or I have no idea. A lot of times, sometimes, guys, I have no idea where these guys come from, and it doesn't matter to me. I just got 2 individuals here, and I treat every fight, every round different.
Absolutely.
I will say too, from like the other, from the other coach's standpoint too, like, some of these guys aren't realistic, man, with who they're sending in there to the cage. It's like, you watch the guy train in the room and yeah, that's great, but you send him in there and he immediately looks like, you know, pardon my French, he looks like garbage the entire time, right? Like sliding all around the floor or whatever, just getting hit everywhere. And you're just watching the fight and you're like, dude, like, don't you have some, at least as a coach in martial arts, have some moral, you know, code somewhere in you that says like, hey, I need to look out for this guy, whether he knows it or not, or looks out for his own well-being, you know? Because there's times when I'm looking in there and I'm like, I'm judging whether or not like, oh, we should let this fight continue, or, you know, or we've called it a couple of times, you know, like in like some other like practice events and things like that for guys, just because you still, as a coach, I think you still owe it to them for, you know, for their health, you know, just, you know, to keep them safe.
Longevity.
Yeah, longevity. And even if it's not something that they necessarily want to do, say for like a long-term thing or something like that, it's like, dude, you still got to go out and live your life. You know, like that's like, you know, some of the stuff, like one of the things in jiu-jitsu is everybody gets afraid when you start getting like a certain style of grappler versus another style of grappler. And it's like, I could understand that, you know, if the guy is like an 80cc level competitor and goes after footlocks and power bombs everybody from wrestling takedowns, and he's going with like, you know, the teen who just got his blue belt and thinks he wants to, you know, get scrappy with the guy. And it's like, well, maybe not today. Let's control this a little bit. You know, as a person on the floor, as a coach, I feel an obligation to sit there and say, hey, let's tone this down a little bit. Let's go at a pace where we both can work and learn, right? Yeah. And I know it's coaching and it's a fight, but you need to carry something like that from a coach's perspective and be realistic and not be a yes man, because I feel like that's what a lot of these coaches are to some of these guys. They get a name after maybe 1 or 2 fights, or because they sell a bunch of tickets. And some of these coaches look at these guys and they're like, yeah, because you're going to bring notoriety to my name just being out there, not notoriety to my name because you're being out there and because you're doing good and because we're taking care of you, but just because, oh, you sell tickets or you make me money. You know, like that bothers me a lot watching it. You know?
You only get one brain.
Yeah, and you only get 2 eyes. Another topic about like that's big in the officiating world right now, that they're having meetings. I know Herb Dean just talked about it on Dominick Cruz's podcast, but the eye poke situation, right? They're talking about kind of how to start mitigating that, like when they should take points and stuff like that. I know you're deeper in this than I am, and I don't know how much of it really you can even talk about, but if they were to go about deducting points, because like everyone always says your first warning's in the back and the first foul is like when you go like this, but like people talk about it all the time, like they do it on purpose. If they're losing, they'll hit a cup shot, and it's even worse when it goes to the eyes because you could actually like blind someone, right? How have they talked about going about mitigating those eye pokes? Do you think it would ever be changed?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I haven't been in that conversation with them. I heard that they are discussing it, but they haven't gotten back to us on it, how they want us to handle it or suggest it or anything. Well, they haven't asked our suggestion anyways, on this level anyway. So I'm sure they are. I mean, it's a big subject. I mean, of fouls,
Going back to, I guess, what the local, because like we talked about, right, there's the public side of the mixed martial arts audience, right, and then there's the more local hobbyist side, right? We were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of the people on the hobbyist side, it's a lot. They join for a lot of different reasons, right? The camaraderie and stuff like that. A lot of people find that their journeys, when they start going through adversity and then battling through them, start becoming almost more philosophical, right? And so that was one of the questions I had for you guys. When did y'all feel like y'all's martial arts journey wasn't just martial arts anymore, and that it started becoming more philosophical, or jiu-jitsu journey, or whichever of the sort? Is it from jiu-jitsu, but I feel like it applies from, or like to all martial arts, right? When did that become more of a philosophical journey?
I don't know. I mean,
I think it's probably more when we got more involved with people.
Yeah.
When more of the people started coming in, and like you said, it was, for different reasons people come, but probably one of the biggest reasons we felt or we saw was mental health, and that doesn't mean you're sick or anything. It just means you need a release place, something to release, leave what's bothering you out there to come in here. And because, like many people say, it's hard to think about what's going on when somebody's choking you or somebody's pushing you to be in the moment you're striking with somebody and you're busy sparring or doing a drill, trying to focus on what's going on, and you don't have time for that. But at the same time, you realize that some of the people that are here, when you sit down and talk to them, they have some of the same problems. Maybe not the same, but similar, and you can almost relate with each other, right? So I think like a lot of the martial arts is, you're going to get all the physical end, self-defense, but jiu-jitsu sometimes like a Trojan horse, right? It's like, you can see the outside, but it's what you're going to get on the inside that comes out later, right? The results. But I think the part that you're talking about is just, I think probably the people, right? Just as you get here more and more and more, and you see the different difficulties that some people have or why they come in here, and sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't, and sometimes you gain a relationship with people later on and you give them their space, and they get closer. I think I can say this very truthfully, but I have a personal relationship with each and every one of my students. Mm-hmm. Everybody. I know everybody, and he does too. And we have, that we can sit back and, we can sit and talk about whatever, and, and I know something about them that they know about me or something.
Okay. So you didn't feel like it started becoming more philosophical with your adversities through martial arts first, before you started having to, I guess, deal with the coaching side of it?
No, I don't feel like that. I mean, when it came to actual competing or fighting, maybe a little of that side came in, but for the most part, not really. I mean, this is pretty much, maybe it's because we just live it, We live this every day, it's a part of us. It's not something like I told you before. It's not a goal that we had. It became us. That's who we are and what we did, right?
I don't think you could separate it, to be honest. I don't think I've ever been able to separate it. It's always been kind of like the two go hand in hand, just because any book that, this was before YouTube and all that stuff came around, is all we had was books. So what do you put in a book? Well, you put words. Most of the time when you catch somebody's attention in a book, it's through either a quote or something original that you wrote. right? So, I mean, I think one of the first ones I ever read was probably the Tao of Jeet Kune. And that was, I mean, there's tons of philosophy stuff in that one. And then I guess as far as the interactions with people, like, yeah, the interactions with people, but it's like, how do I put it? I guess it's like observing kind of the same, like, not that everybody's a case study or anything like that, you know, I don't want to make it sound like we're trying to like diagnose people, because we don't, you know, it's just, you get entwined with the whole philosophical side of it. If you're somebody who's coming from the outside, who's never grown up in it, we see it, but they get it, because usually what ends up happening is, you know, you have some other crazy thing going on outside, like he said, and this is the only place that you have really as like kind of an outlet, maybe a workout spot, whatever it happens to be. But you come in here and you start training, and as the stress release, I guess, kind of happens, how do you say, like, it's not, they almost like kind of start to see it themselves a little bit, like in the process. Right. And it becomes something that they kind of cling to, and it becomes the reason why sometimes some people keep training, you know, more even so than the physical side of it. You know, some of the guys like the puzzle and like the almost the therapeutic work of it to try and, you know, implement on the floor. I think that's cool too, but it's
also almost as if like,
I don't think you can divorce the two, like,
because it's almost as if like martial arts almost in a way imitates life, right? Like you go through hard times in the gym, you're not to get choked out. How do I stay calm? Right, that's the first situation. You're out there in trouble, right? In a bad situation on the street. First thing you need to do, which a lot of people don't do, is how do I stay calm, right? And it's, like I think T actually said it best in one of our first episodes. I asked him to define martial arts, and I remember he said, martial arts is a recreational life tool. And man, I really related that, because it changed my life in a lot of different ways as well. Just with how I see the world, how I see adversities and different things like that as well. Then, like you said, going and get into more like coaching and stuff like that, you see it in other people as well. And then you also relate your own experiences with it. But
yeah, I think there are so many lessons taught that we don't recognize sometimes, like just even sometimes quieting that little voice in your head that we all have. And sometimes it gets in the way, and then in here, you learn to cope with it. I mean, I'll tell you what, I mean, like, I hope she don't mind me saying this, but like, you know, Danielle's like a really great example. I mean, like, you know, she's been in the cage, she's competed on all different levels, and she's learned now how to quiet a lot of that noise that's when she's in a big fight, that she's in the cage and she's moving around, learning how to quiet that noise down, right, and be able to be focused on what you're doing. And the same thing happens a lot of times even in our personal lives, right? We have to learn to quiet that noise, because a lot of times that's usually the worst thing that you have, is that voice between your ears, you know, that's getting us a lot of times. It's like, oh, I got to do this, or I got to do that, or so-and-so thinks of this, or I'm that, or, you know, I got work, I got a deadline, I got to meet, you know, and you beat yourself down more than you probably should, you know.
And do you think that, because both of you are also fathers, right? Do you think that becoming a father changes the way you approach training as well? Or becoming a parent in general?
I mean, I don't think I was ever really, I like to get in a lot of training, but I don't think I've ever looked at any individual training session as being less than another. So for me, it's always been like a time, like, you know, use your time wisely kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Just because I know, you know, the baby and all that stuff coming in and getting married and like all the other stuff that comes along with, like, I guess, life and other people's lives too. You know, I see that on a regular basis. You know, I see how people structure their lives and try to get stuff in and training around it. And I mean, I see what the benefits are for them. Maybe they don't use it the same way, but they get something out of it, you know? So I think that's more important. Not necessarily always thinking that it has to be like, oh, it's got to be training. It's like, it can be something mental too, you know? Like the mental side of it is a big part of it. Like you said, like, you know, with other students and stuff like that, some of those guys have gotten a lot out of just the mental side of it, just from being out there, you know? Like, especially coming from a standpoint of like being a father to a little girl and seeing how women deal with it. I will say women have a harder time dealing with that kind of stuff, especially in a male-dominated sport, like on a floor, just because they're almost hypersensitive to hearing all that stuff all the time, right? Like, because like we're obsessed with our images and stuff like that, but a lot of times we're so competitive that we're focused on doing something physical and like interacting with another guy or something like that on the floor. Women, they're always like, I don't want to look like this, look inferior to like this situation because I should have the skill to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the voice in their head that he's talking about. Is like, that's the thing that they're learning to quiet down and just go through the actual acceptance of the fact like, hey, it's not impossible. I can get out of here. It's going to take time to develop the skill, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
I just have to pace myself and be patient as I do it and not think that it's got to be done under like these certain circumstances or pressures or things like that from the outside that I think are more important than the actual situation that's going on.
I'm glad you actually just brought that up and touched on that, because that actually leads into one of our fan questions that we had, which was, what skill level do you think a woman needs to be at before they're ready to handle themselves in a real world situation against a larger untrained attacker, right? Because you see these girls who start jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, like you said, maybe they have an unrealistic expectation of what it's like to be a woman fighting with a man or having to defend yourself against a man. And then they also think that maybe it like happens quick, but what skill level or how long or what kind of experience do you think that they need to go through in the gym before you feel like they could actually handle themselves in a situation like that?
Well, this comes from many years of experience, but I will tell you, first, be truthful with them.
Yeah.
You know, be honest. I mean, I know you want a student, you want to be able to pay the rent more, right? But be honest, like, because this happened to me already, but I'll tell the student or the female, you know, what is the individual or what do you think you're like? And I just tell them, you're not going to be able to beat this guy, or you're not going to be able to do this, or you're too small. I said, but what I can give you is the confidence to step up and make good decisions, to think under pressure, you know. And a lot of this, you know, some of the methodology, I think, of a lot of schools, I don't think sometimes when you get some of the younger generation that's teaching, they don't have that yet. You know, they don't have that because they don't have the experience. You only get wisdom through experience, right? And so, you know, I will tell you that probably, you know, bringing somebody like that is sometimes like depending on what they're at, and they come to you with it as a novice saying, I don't know whether I should take jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or boxing, what should I take? My suggestion would be right away was just put them in a boxing or kickboxing class. Why? So they can see how uncoordinated they are, or see what the structure is going to take, right? So that they won't fool themselves about thinking what's possible, right? Yeah. Thinking that if I can kickbox really good, I can beat this guy. No. Okay? And then the second part is learning to really put him in uncomfortable positions, maybe sometimes, and jiu-jitsu, but done the right way, right? Mm-hmm. Because I've been with people or females that have had trauma, and they get flashbacks, and all of a sudden they're crying or something's happening because somebody handled them in this manner, right? And so these situations are very one-on-one. You know, you have to do one-on-one. Can they blow in a group class? Sure they can. But depending on what their goals are and what they're looking for, and as a good instructor, you have to sit down and have that interview with them, have that talk with them, right? And you understand where they're at. Learn to listen a little bit more than talk. Right, and you know,
because it is more on an individual basis.
Yes, it is very much so. Yes.
Okay. Another fan question before we finish off with our last few questions that we have from ourselves is, obviously y'all been around the game a lot, right? Y'all know of Coach Saul Solis, right? Mm-hmm. Rest in peace. What are some stories you have of Coach Saul Solis? Best, worst.
He's a tough coach, you know. I mean, I have really nothing bad to say about him. He was a tough guy. I competed against him, if I remember right, at one of the Dungals, and he's a tough guy, very knowledgeable as far as grappling. You know, he didn't like to lose. At the end, he and I didn't get along very well just because he didn't like my judging or my refereeing. But he was a good guy. He was, and not to say that just because he's gone, but I would have said that before. And I would see him, and he and I would shake hands and go forth. But it wouldn't be no more than that. And he probably shook my hand out of just respect to see me, and I see him, but we knew each other in that manner. But I'd seen him in like I said, over the years many times. But yeah, no, I thought he was a good coach. I mean, obviously because he had some really tough guys. And he worked a lot. I remember him when the time working with Tito Ortiz. He was a good coach. I mean, really. I mean, what people didn't like about him, I guess, is just that he was somewhat very loud, very forceful with whatever he said. He told you straight the way it was, and I agree. I mean, there's no. I mean, that's the way you should be. If that's who you are, that's who you are. That's who I am. I don't always try to sugarcoat everything, but I got a better way maybe of saying things. And maybe Sal didn't. Maybe Sal just told you. If it was black, it was black. If it was red, it was red. He wasn't like light gray or it wasn't pink. It was that way. But he was a good guy, for real. He really was. He had his own ways.
Okay. Cool. Do you have any memories?
No, I pretty much say around the same thing. I do remember coaching against him a couple of times and him being very, like you said, very blunt about telling fighters. But at the same time, I'd rather have a blunt coach that's pissed off at me in my corner than just a yes man the entire time,
Right.
But yeah, I've seen him a couple of times, interact with him, shook hands with him. Never really sat and had a genuine conversation, to be honest. But I mean, he did what he set out to do. He put some guys in the track, so that's
Okay.
Shout out.
And I know you touched on this earlier. Coming to an end here, you talked about how having your daughter, you felt like it almost it helped you grow as a person. A spot that maybe at that time you didn't know needed to be filled, or like a hole in yourself. And touching on Dominick Cruz's podcast, actually, again, it's called the Love and War. Right, Love and War with Dominick Cruz, and he actually touches on this aspect about how the two interact and how they also are kind of like oil and water sometimes, and talking about how he would never even he would never use the word love when he was fighting, right, and he would never kind of intermingle the two, and he couldn't have single or serious relationships and stuff like that because of his mindset while he was fighting and stuff like that. So I guess my question to you guys is, how do love and war mix? Because both of you have had combat careers, but yet are still married.
That's a good question.
Well, I can tell you for sure.
That's a good question.
I'll answer first because I'm the older guy, right? And here's why I say that because when you're up and coming and up to the age of, this is just a number, 21. Mm-hmm. The way you're going to think is one way. And when you turn 35, you're going to think another. Then you turn 40, you're thinking another way. Each time you age, you're maturing mentally, physically, everything, right? As you go up. So you may not look at it. So right now, the way I look at things may not be the way you guys are looking at things, or he looks at things.
Sure.
I'm looking at it in a different way, right? I can't go around, headbutting, eye gouging people's eyes all my life, just because that's what I did at 21.
Yes, sir.
At 25, and at 30, I mean, maybe 40, but
25 is great.
But the point is that you got to go on the other side, and
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance, but it's also I don't want to say it's seasonal because that sounds bad, but it's you also have to have a special person. It's very rare to get somebody that actually can sit there, all the weight cuts and all the fight training, the hours you're leaving, the hours you're coming in at, all the extra stuff you're doing on the side, the meetings, the interviews, all that stuff. When I was doing it, that basically was all consuming. All I did was train and train, eat, sleep. That was basically it. And then whenever my wife came into the picture and we started dating, it was kind of towards the end of my career. I think it was last 2 fights. And it changed, but it was it made the off time a little more valuable but also a little less like chaotic, because as a young guy, I'm only worried about myself, I don't have to like, oh, there's no obligations the next morning to like go hang out with this person for breakfast or, or anything like that. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna go out and go hang out with my friends tonight, or I'm gonna go party and stuff. And I did, I went out a lot, and, I had my fun there going out and hanging out with my friends and doing stuff and, traveling different places and things like that. But then as soon as we got married, it's not that it didn't necessarily take a back seat. I can't say that I threw it to the back, because I absolutely like loved it. And it was something that I stressed over leaving behind. It's that I felt okay leaving it behind because I actually kind of wanted to. I was kind of past that point already, like it's like you're saying, like the maturity level of the person as they go. I've experienced a lot. I can say I've experienced a lot of in this sport in particular, in the game as far as MMA, like pretty early, like a lot earlier than most people actually give me credit for. And it's kind of funny, like sometimes when I have to go back and explain it, just because some people don't even realize that I was around for some of the stuff that came about. And it's like, well, I saw all that stuff, I experienced all that stuff. So in a way, I kind of matured a little bit faster than I guess most people would have by the time they get out of the game. I mean, you look at Dustin Poirier, and Dustin Poirier, he fought until he's 30, 37, 38? He was up there, right?
He's off a little bit.
Yeah, and he's got his injuries and stuff like that and everything he's done. And I'm not comparing myself to his skill or anything like that anyway, but you hear him talk at the start of his career versus the end of his career, and it's like two different people.
Yes.
The start of his career, he sounds like some guy who just got out of like the pen and just itching to fight somebody. Oh. And then you look at him in his later fights, and the same thing with like Holloway and these other guys. They're laughing and they're like kind of carrying on, almost like it's just like a cool thing to just do, as opposed to like, oh, this is me. It's not their identity anymore. It's changed. So I guess it's weird, but like I said, I still keep that in my back pocket ever since, like being able to kind of learn the idea of the intensity and like kind of snapping into that mode. But man, it was hard to learn it, and it was hard to manage it. But it is a management thing though, because it's still there. I can still tap into it if I need it, but I don't need it, and very rarely would I need it. And
you feel like it's more compartmentalization.
Yeah, a little bit of compartmentalization, but then some maturity on the point of like, you don't always need to be like that.
I think you guys have seen a little bit when he's coaching sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And you guys are slipping, and he's on you.
Oh, he get righteous.
And like,
that's
I've seen it too, and I like it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I wish he would start barking more right now.
He's slipping in the line.
And I'm sitting there because I'm making my observation. I'm watching, right? And we have our conversation. We always have these conversations, but yeah, I see it. I mean, you guys have too. So.
Oh, Noah saw it on Friday. He had him on hands and knees Friday. That's right. That dude was getting active. I got a question.
You're good, man. You're good.
Okay.
You went crazy. You went crazy. I do have a question. What are some of the things y'all do? Because y'all know y'all here 7 days a week. So what are some of the things y'all like to do just to decompress away from the gym?
I'll let you go first on this.
Away from here. I know it sounds weird, but I guess it's maybe in addition to this, but I like to work out in general.
Wow.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be like weights here working out for this. Like we make a joke sometimes if we'll go to the river or something like that. Some of the guys every now and then will want to go, or like we'll just go as a family, and everybody always has the joke that I'm the one that's getting the workout while we're in the river. Because I actually am. I'm jumping in there and I'm like ice bathing basically, because it's like 50 something degrees, and I'm paddling on my legs until I can feel so many repetitions, and then I'll chill out for a little bit, and then I'll jump in there again. But I just kind of like being active for the most part. And you see that in the baby too. She can never stop moving. So she keeps me active, and she's a big decompressor just because I got to switch over from coach and fight mode to like dad mode, like almost on instant. So that's a pretty good decompressor.
That was the first time we got to saw him be, a little smooth, cute Jason. He in here, he's Coach Jason. We got to saw him get married. We get to see the sweet side. I love it. Professor.
If I like being outside. I like cutting the yard.
Yeah, we go hiking a lot too.
I like cleaning the garage out. Just doing stuff out, washing all the cars, all 3 cars. I'll wash all the cars. in one afternoon, just
And
because
cooking.
I like to be outside. I just like doing that. But when I'm really down and I'm like, I put my Earth, Wind, and Fire, listen to my songs, my good music, and I'll have me a good drink and shooting some pool. And I can do that. I can do that all by myself.
There we go.
You know, I can listen to my Tejano music and just chill out, bro. And I crank it up. Sometimes when these guys all leave and nobody's there, they come to the house and I got the music right there. The house is going, and I'm all by myself having my drink, having a good time back there.
Feel that.
Okay.
Feel that. It's so
So as we finish off, we know that it is the holiday season, right? This is episode 100, but it's also the Christmas special. And while a lot of people are happy during the holidays, a lot of people can also get down, right? And get down to the point of maybe even contemplating thinking their own life. And as fathers, right, and as even leaders in the martial arts community, where you kind of see that a lot, what would your advice be to some of these kids who get down and have some of these thoughts during the holidays?
You know, I miss my mom a lot. And I used to have a lot of conversations with her. And I will tell you, if you feel in that manner, you should find someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be a relative, someone you're close to, and have a conversation with them. Talk to them and say what's on your mind. Because a lot of times, like, just letting things out, like just coming here and working out, just you feel better when you're done, and just letting it out, right? And I would say that, you know, for me, I would say, you know, find someone you can talk to, someone you're comfortable with. You know, the beauty of that I have, especially with you guys, and especially with this guys, that, or even my family here, is that no one's going to judge me about what I say, how I do things, or anything, right? And I do it within context, right? I'm not stupid about what I do, but no. And so if you could find someone like that, you know, sometimes your immediate family is not that person or that helper that, you know, sometimes it's just somebody on the outside. And then you just be able to reach out and talk to that person. You know, being by yourself is probably the toughest part. That's why you need to be around somebody. Don't be by yourself. So.
Yeah, we are social animals at that day. You have anything to add to that?
Yeah, find an activity, find, of course, like you said, a person. And then the other part too that I see a lot too is like, man, you see a lot of guys really out there right now with like a lot of kind of, not necessarily no goals, but just aimlessness as far as like how to conduct themselves. You know, like, oh, you mentioned a thing about like stoicism and things like that. And, you know, like I've always liked that stuff just because I've always liked history. And so I always like to read about that stuff. But one of the things you learn reading into that stuff, especially about their lifestyles, is those guys went through some really, really, really bad things. I mean, Epictetus was a slave, you know. And so it's like when you think about stuff like that and you get into reading as far as like kind of lifestyles, it's like it puts a thought in your head sometimes about like, okay, well, I think specifically the people you should be looking to maybe talk to are not necessarily just people just around you, but somebody in your vicinity, like maybe even within friends. That doesn't have to be necessarily, like you said, a family member, but definitely older. Because I feel like a lot of these guys that are walking around that are trying to judge all these things for themselves, they're listening to all these like guys talk about stuff on, you know, maximizing potential or whatever it is, or like life coaches and all this stuff. It's like all they're doing is spoon feeding you stuff that's gonna look good on an algorithm. They're not giving you information to help you, you know, put together your life. Yeah. Versus somebody who's actually had experience in their life and been through some of these situations, maybe even if it's just a couple of years ahead of you, can actually point you in a direction because, hey, I'm the closest to you relative wise, you know. It's like the same thing like what we do in training sometimes, you know. Like in jiu-jitsu, it's really apparent that, to me anyway, is that sometimes you have a black belt that's teaching the class, and I can be teaching the greatest stuff, greatest information out there, but it's not getting through to the blue belt, you know. And the reason it's not getting through the blue belt is because he doesn't understand the logic. He doesn't understand the reasoning yet. He doesn't understand the outcome of it. He doesn't understand where it's going to go. So I get a guy closer to his level to show it to him. And that guy's like, oh, like I can explain it to you. And you see it too, like a lot with kids classes. I can't sit there and scream at the kid and tell him something, you know, otherwise he's going to cry and break down. It's like, I'll just go get the other little kid and tell him, because that little kid has been around me longer and knows how I talk. So that little kid's going to go tell that little kid in the way that kids tell kids, and it comes across the way it's supposed to, you know? I think it's important about like using that as a criteria, somebody older, and that's always been something that's been brought up through Stoicism, religion, like even religion being that too, because, I'm a firm believer in a lot of the Stoic principles being, Catholic or Christian. That's you see that a lot, and a lot of the books written on that stuff actually take on that format too. Right. It's not just, here's the words just because an ancient guy said it, and you got to follow it because it was a famous book. It's like, no, there's a reason and a structure to it, and even though they didn't have that structure back then, or they didn't know they were following that structure back then, like here's the logic behind that, Right. But I think it's good just because it's always been suggested to look at an older person, they understand what they're doing.
I remember one of the greatest things that we have here in this gym in particular is conversation, right?
Oh yes.
Right? Some of the greatest lessons and conversations we have after class, after training.
Oh, super.
Right? And they're super long, right? Yeah. They're super cool, so yeah, I think that's
crazy. That's crazy you said that. It's like he be looking into my soul. Like, I don't know why, but guys, there was a time, I talk about this a lot. I was so far gone. I had that experience where I didn't feel like I wanted to be here no more. I kind of lost my passion just to be here, and y'all brought that all the way back. Y'all brought that same life back when I never thought I had any more life to live for. Tell you the truth. Y'all brought me back. And I love you guys, and I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, we love you too, brother. I'm glad we were able to do it. Yes. Awesome. Hey.
Thank you, sir.
Especially this guy right here.
Yeah. So finishing off the episode, of course, there's going to be a lot of people who watch this and stuff like that. What are some of the things y'all are looking forward to in the near future with 2026 right around the corner? And also, how can the people watching this best support you guys and y'all's journey?
There we go.
Well, even if you don't come to us, and you're out there doing something, get involved in something, I mean, it's not going to do any good sitting at the house, time is going to go on. Eventually, your health is going to be affected by it. And whether you see me or see somebody else, you're going to see somebody. And the doctor's going to send you there, right? So, for myself, again, at 65, I'm really having a time of my life, and I'm working. It was a time where martial arts was the most important, and my fitness, and then my health. Today, it's the opposite. It's health, fitness, and now my martial arts. So I have to maintain it in that order now, right? If I'm going to continue to do this for the longevity of it, right? And I guess this, and this long-term goal for the gym is just keep the camaraderie, try to keep everybody strong, keep everybody involved and wanting to show up, we have promotions coming up in June, and we have a couple more black belts coming up, and we have 26 at our school here already, and we're gonna have a couple more. It's exciting to hear, and then we got some other colored belts coming up. I want to announce them, but I'm excited for that too. Right? So that's it.
And how about yourself?
Well, baby's first Christmas, so that's pretty exciting.
Congratulations.
Baby's first everything going into this new year. She's actually turning 1 officially in February 25th. So that's an interesting one to get ready for. But then also I just, in general, just improving the business, just because it's going to be cool to kind of see with this going the way it is and how everything is kind of panned out. It's going to be interesting to kind of do it with her in the background, getting a chance to kind of be there and watch everything, and then whenever she's ready to jump in, if she wants to jump in, hopefully she'll want to jump in, She already wants to attack her stuffed animals and do all this stuff. She learned how to kick and all that stuff, so it's big.
Walking at 6 months.
She already is. She about to get a blue belt.
She's gonna have to work for that.
Like me, tell your grandma, your pappy, and your little brother and sister, y'all need to get in the gym. We need y'all up in here. Texas Third Coast, man. Yes, sir.
So, guys, that's been episode 100 of the Will vs. the Way Uncensored MMA Podcast with our guests, Professor Joe Solis, Professor Jason.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Guys, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Yeah, this one's gonna blow.
Thank you guys again. Thank you.
What's up, villains? New episodes of the Will vs. the Way Uncensored MMA Podcast drop weekly. Make sure to check out our most recent episodes and latest interviews that we've had on the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.